Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to call this Board of Adjustment to order. First, let me announce all the decisions of the board are considered final. If anyone aggrieved by the decision of the board, they may appeal to circuit court within 15 days of the board's decision. Also, no permits or license can be issued until that 15-day appeal period is expired and no appeal has been filed. For information regarding the board's decision or an appeal circuit court, the Office of Land Use Administration will be your contact. As you come to the podium, we'll ask that you give your name and address for the record. And I would ask at this time, if you have an electronic device, you turn it off or silent so we don't have a disturbance, to include the board members. And I'll remind the board members also to turn on their mics when they make a statement or a motion. All speakers are to address the board, and if we need, we'll ask the staff for comment or guidance. There's a 5-minute limitation per speaker, and then we always allow 4 in support of an application, 4 in opposition. So if you have more than 4, I always say pick your best 4 early so we don't have to wait to sort that out. And we'll proceed. First, let me call roll call. Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Golden? Mr. Metcalf? Mr. Milling? Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Morris?
Here.
I'm William Guest. We have all 7 members present. It takes 5 members to affirm a motion, either in support or opposition. And since we have a quorum, we have no reason to, have any concern with any kind of recusal at this time. So, Chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And we have Mr. Anderson here to represent the board as our legal advisor. You may call on him as necessary. And we have a couple holdovers, so we'll start in order of the holdovers. Let's see here. Starting with application 6461, 6375. Regarding 5535, 5575 U.S. Highway 90. Is the applicant's rep present? You'll come to the podium.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Eckhart with Quick Trip Corporation, address 5725 Fox Ridge Drive, Mission, Kansas.
Okay, and the application is recommended for denial. Would you like to tell the board why we should consider otherwise?
Yes, sir. So this application is a duplicate of a previously approved application. April 6th, I'm sorry, the letter of decision April 6th, April 5th, 2021, this same request was made in regard to signage for the future Quick Trip project that was rezoned. There's a misunderstanding internally, multiple people working on this project about the expiration of that variance and what the process was to request an extension. And so the extension request was missed, thus the reason we've resubmitted this application. The reason for the delay, we've had significant reviews ongoing with DOT on this project. Happy to say all those are resolved. The construction plans for this property have been submitted to the city. The project is out to bid, and it is our intent to start construction here in the next, hopefully 1 to 2 months, just depending on how quickly we can mobilize. So, again, it's the same request we made about a year ago this time, or I'm sorry, back in April. I did have some renderings I wanted to share, but did not have prints available. There's a couple of renderings here on this, but I've got renderings of how the site would finish. However, they're on a flash drive, so unable to share those with you guys, but happy to send them to anybody after the meeting if there's any questions or specific areas of the property you'd like to see. So,
okay, is there any questions of the board for the applicant? Staff, can you confirm that the board, I don't remember this application. I may not have been present.
It was previously approved by the board, and that expiration had expired.
And was the previous approval exact to the same request as today? Signs and height and location?
Definitely the heights, and I believe the number of signs as well. I apologize. I don't have that readily.
if for any reason it's not, but our intent is to get the same approval we had previously. So I can confirm the height of the high-rise sign that was on the application is the same. I believe all the individual signs listed on the building and the canopy and then a standalone monument sign are the same. But again, if it's not, and there's one that needs to be changed to match the previous approval, we're happy to do so.
Once again, any questions of the board? All right, do we have anyone in the audience in favor of the application that has anything to add? Anyone in opposition to this application today? Okay, that'll close our public hearing regarding this application. As the applicant stated, it has been previously approved, and the extension was just not requested during the reasonable time frame. I would. Oh, you moved quick on me. Sorry. I just want to verify that we won't have the same situation in a year. That
no, sir.
Time frame is.
The intent is to start construction on this within, like I said, the next 1 to 2 months. We'll have a contractor ready to pull those permits. We just had ongoing review with the DOT. Didn't have a signed contractor on board who could pull those permits, so you won't see my face again.
Okay. Right.
Mr. Chairman, hold on. You may want to keep your face there. The staff analysis, it's requesting approval of the previously approved request as well as one additional sign and 2 temporary signs.
Okay, so it's
So
not apples to apples.
So
correct.
So the temporary signs, what was the specifics of those?
They are basically the bags going over the interstate signs that say coming soon, if I understand correctly. Yes. It's in your packet.
I was just going to confirm that that's accurate. The temporary signs I do know were included in there, and they're in the. I can provide a copy of the letter. If there's one additional sign, again, that's a mistake on our part. I agreeable to remove whatever's does not match on the previous application.
Do we know what specific sign?
No, but if the board's looking to approve it again, we can, the board could say it's reapproving the variance granted at April 5th, 2021 meeting, and then there's no question.
And it was 2020?
April 5th, 2021.
I believe, just to add one additional clarification, that I'm not 100% sure it's accurate, but I think in the previous application, there's a truck scale sign for where the trucks will weigh after fueling that had a Quick Trip logo on it. During the meeting, we'd agreed to remove that. Again, I matched the application, so that may be the additional sign. I don't know for 100% sure, but how she laid it out with the April 5th, 2021, I'm agreeable to that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the application, but the approval is for the previously approved application on April 5th, 2021, with the exception of to add the temporary signs that's being requested today, but not the additional sign itself, as the gentleman stated.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we're on application 6462, 5738 regarding 354 St. Francis Street. Is the applicant present today? So it'd be Kendall Dumas. Is that correct? Okay, is the applicant's rep here today? All right, we'll move on. Maybe the applicant's been delayed arriving. All right, we'll go to application 3, which is a holdover as well, 6464, 4770, Deborah May. Good afternoon.
My name is Deborah May. I am discussing for a variance for 5032 Government Boulevard, Mobile 36693.
Is that your address?
That's my address, my home address.
Okay. And we do have comments that were sent in as well regarding your application for this board to review. Some in support and some in opposition, kind of an even mix, I think. Okay, proceed. Your application last time was recommended for denial, and we gave you and some others an opportunity to speak. And I think there was some drawings that we were asking last time, and we
Mr.
had
Chairman, it was not, clarification, it was not recommended for denial, it was a holdover.
It was a holdover.
Oh, it was, okay, I recall, because there was some discrepancy between what your architect maybe
Right. My
had
architect-
submitted,
and I have the plans if
and
they were supposed
so
to be
there-
submitted, but I have them also here today.
When was that? Was that
At the last meeting, we held it over. Ms. May had mentioned that she had gone through a pre-development meeting with the
Right.
city, and there were some, excuse me, some questions on whether or not she had relied on representations by the city staff in paying her architect money to go further down the road. And I agreed with, or I suggested we do hold it over so I could do a little investigation. Fortunately, the city, when they do a pre-development meeting, this one was all by virtual Zoom, so it was recorded. And I watched the video. There was probably 4 or 5 different staff members from the city involved in that with Ms. May and her husband. Ms. May acknowledged that she had gone through the variance application 20 years ago and had, for this very site, for the same thing, had was unable to prove a hardship at that time, and it was denied. I think that was about 20 years ago. There was discussion by some city employees on the call about how it used to be all these were turned down, but more recently, in the last few years, a lot of them had been approved, but that she was still aware that she had to go through the application process. I spoke with Ms. May after the meeting last time. She was aware of the last one that we heard that was denied, that Adidra Craig has now appealed to circuit court. So I don't think there's anything in the record that can justify a reliance argument to where she could take us to court because of anything that happened at that pre-development meeting. It's my opinion that if a judge was looking at this, he'd say that she was fully aware of the risk going forward. There was certainly nothing in that pre-development meeting. There was no statement by any city employee that would say, yeah, go ahead and get all your plans in, or go ahead and spend this money before the meeting, before your approval. So I just don't think there's legally the evidence is there to prove any reliance. I'm sorry she's in this situation. Fortunately, when the UDC takes effect in January, there'll be a different process. You won't have to prove a hardship. She just gets approval through the Planning Commission and City Council for this use. So that's my report from the last meeting.
one more clarification? But you just said that we denied it at the last meeting.
No, it was held over. It was denied 20 years ago when she came up.
Okay,
For a
that's what I'm
variance.
saying.
Yeah.
She couldn't be here this month if you were denied.
Right.
It was held, I just want to make that clarification. It was held over.
Okay.
Can I say something to that? We were all involved in a Zoom meeting with all of the home daycare providers that the city provided or someone provided, which I have the meeting Zoom that they had, that they invited all of the family child care providers to attend this Zoom meeting to give us information about doing a group home. So when the city comes to you and gives you a Zoom meeting saying that, things are being approved, to me, that's an indication that there is a better chance of it going through. And I attended that Zoom meeting as well as my own pre-planning meeting.
Better
And
chance.
that
I'm
was
sorry, go
in
ahead.
February, in April and in February were the two Zoom meetings that I attended.
Mr. Anderson, you had something to add?
A better chance, maybe, but still, I believe that she was aware of a risk going forward, and that she could be denied, especially since she was aware of Ms. Craig's denial a few months ago.
All right. Couple things. So you had plans
Right.
prepared. Did you meet with the homeowners association as I recommended?
I did not. The reason for this is because they have always been against any change whatsoever in our neighborhood. It doesn't matter what, if anything is, anything, everything's always been denied in our neighborhood. So there is no speaking with them. When I did it 20 years ago, they sent around a petition lying, saying that I was trying to open up a daycare center. And at that time, y'all had those big, huge signs out in my front yard. And so it's hard for me to talk to someone that's not listening to, a variance is only going to allow me to do the 10 children. It's not going to allow me to do a daycare center. It's not going to allow me to move out of my home and make this into a different business. It's only for what you're getting the variance for, and they're not understanding that.
All right. Any questions for the board for the applicant? Okay. Anyone here in support that has anything to add today?
Am I done?
What do you have to add?
I just want to make a
time
point.
limit.
I was going to say, I just want to make a point that, there is the easy access in and out of my neighborhood with a traffic light. They only come on my street. They don't go within the neighborhood. The letters that you received last month were, I did not solicit those letters. A prospective daycare parent solicited those that needed care. And all of those letters were from people that live on my street, as well as 2 people, 3 houses up and around the corner and in Vista Ridge have requested daycare, which is our subdivision, that need this child care. So it's not even out of our subdivision that the care is giving. These people live in our neighborhood. And as far as fire, I have fire hydrants at both ends of my street. So for safety wise, that's done too.
Okay. And you understand that if the board would approve it, there's a whole lot of other conditions.
Right. I understand there's other permits that have to be done. Right.
Yeah,
I
you
do
still have to
understand
meet
it.
other conditions.
Right.
Okay. You have some people with you today. Do you have anything to add you wish to provide? Statement?
My name is Amber Williamson. I live at 5040 Government Boulevard, directly next door to Miss May. I have observed her from the very first day she's been there. It is a wonderful business. It has never interfered with anything at my address. No traffic problems, no volume, anything. This is really needed. She is an extraordinary daycare. My grandson waited to get in this daycare. If I could vote, I would vote for her to do this.
Thank you. Any questions of the board? All right.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Ogden. I live at 5754 Antoine Road, Mobile, Alabama 36693. I'm here in support of Debbie May. I have both children who attended her daycare. She has been the wonderful daycare. There's never any traffic on the road. She's very strict with us parents to make sure that we maintain our space in front of her house to pick up our children and drop off our children, to not interfere with her neighbors. I have a child who is staying at home with me this summer because she didn't have a spot for him to go into, and it's an inconvenience for me because I know how amazing she is and what she did for me and my family.
Once again, any questions of the board? All right, thank you. All right.
The applicant, but I do have a question for council and for the chair. Recently, we have.
Just a second. Please go ahead.
Recently, we have had these similar applications before. There were some criteria that we had to meet that were not in compliance. What's different from this application and the ones that we've had previously, recently?
I think the only criteria that all of these applicants have in common is that they have to comply. When they go from 5 to 10, they go from a residential to a commercial use as far as the building code is concerned. So building code, fire, plumbing, all that has to come up in to compliance with the building code. Legal criteria is all the same. All of these have had the same. Yeah, and that criteria is hardship. No, to prove to obtain a variance, they have to prove that the property suffers a hardship in that it cannot be used for its zoning classification.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
another question for council. Doug, is this, if I recall, you have come to the conclusion legally that we should not even be hearing these. And I believe that at the last meeting, the reason that we're hearing it again today is because there was some questions about staff and meeting and just some clarification. Is that still the case here?
Correct. I wanted to give Ms. May the benefit of the doubt since she had made the comment last week or last month that based on the meeting she had with the city, she moved forward. So I wanted to check that out. But yeah, my opinion, legal opinion, is still the same.
Okay, I want to clarify. My understanding is anybody can apply for a variance, though, right?
Correct.
So she has legal right to apply for a variance.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Sir, you wanted to speak in favor?
Good morning. I'm Joseph Rodriguez, the architect for the job.
And your address?
My address is 2240 Carrington Drive, Mobile 36695. And I'm just reporting, and it was requested that I make this meeting. I don't know why, but I'm here, so to let the record show. And then also let the record show that if I could start back over, I want to go to her daycare. Okay, thank you very much.
Me too.
All right. Thank you. All right. I think that concludes those that are speaking in favor. We have some in opposition that would like to speak today. You'll come down and we'll start that process. Good afternoon.
Good
Your name and
afternoon.
address?
My name's Bobby Bass, 3725 Long Ridge Drive East. And I oppose the change because additional traffic, and I feel our neighborhood doesn't need a daycare center because it's mostly senior people.
Have you had a homeowners meeting since the last time you were here?
No, we haven't been meeting. It's regular since COVID. But
My understanding, it was requested many years ago. Were you in the neighborhood at the time?
I was, but I wasn't the president at that time.
Okay.
But I remember it.
And was there opposition?
There was opposition.
Okay. Any questions of the board for this gentleman? Okay. Thank you. When we
Yeah, I have one. Since then, I mean, you had opposition at that point. Have you had any problems since then at all?
No, we haven't had any problems.
Okay. Thanks.
Do we have
Thank
others?
you.
You had another statement, sir?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have others that would like to speak in opposition?
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Tart. I live at 5217 Drexel Drive, Mobile, Alabama 36693, which is in the Lansdowne subdivision. Our opposition was, if I understand the attorney correctly, he said it would change, the zoning would change the residence to a commercial. It would not.
It's not a zoning change, but as far as the building code is concerned, it's like going from residential to a commercial establishment.
So what would that do? My question is, what would that do as far as signing? Could they put up signs or anything like that in the neighborhood? I know it would increase traffic.
Okay, I'll defer to staff to the specifics.
The sign regulations would still be in effect, which this is a residential zoning, so she would be limited to one sign attached to the home, 1 square foot in terms of signage, because that's regulated via the zoning ordinance. However, the structure itself, the dwelling, would have to come into compliance with commercial building code requirements.
Okay. So it would remain R1?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and won't change to, and once it's changed, it will if she moves out, the next person that moves in, it will remain there.
Yes, sir. If the variance is approved, the zoning would remain R1 single-family residential. The only use that could be on that property other than an R1 use is a daycare for 10 children. But that would transfer to any subsequent owners.
Okay.
Only for 6 months, right?
No, forever.
Okay.
What about non-conforming use?
No, it's by variance. Variance runs with the land, and once approved, you have 6 months within which to activate it, within which to obtain your permits and comply. But once it's activated, it's forever. We have variance files going back to variance number 1 from the 1954, 57 zoning ordinance. They're forever.
Okay, are you clear?
Yeah.
The use, the variance today we're considering is for a 10-person daycare.
Right.
That's all the variance is for.
Okay.
It will not turn into a commercial of any other type.
Okay. And it won't go to B1.
It'll still be R1.
It'll be R1.
This is not a zoning change.
Okay. The only thing we would have trouble with is increased traffic.
Okay.
Right. Right now, we need to talk about that road right now because that service road on government right now, the trees and the roots have pulled it up right now because of traffic, and it really needs paving right now.
Okay. Any other questions for this gentleman? All right. Thanks, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you. Do we have others today who would like to speak in opposition?
Good afternoon. My name is Vanessa Brown, and I reside at 5355 Lansdowne Drive, Mobile 36693. The reason I am opposing this is because I've been in the neighborhood for 30 years. When we bought land and built a house, we were buying land and property in a subdivision in a residential area. When we have businesses move into our subdivision, we want a quiet subdivision without a lot of traffic, a lot of things going on. We want peace and quiet. And as we age, that's what we still want. So I don't know how much more traffic. I don't know how much parents coming in and out or whatever's going on, but we would like to keep it residential. That's what we bargained for, and that's what we want. You have 6 right now. Ms. May has 6. She wants 10. Later on, she may want 15. I don't know. But, I just feel as though we need to look out for the subdivision, the neighborhood. Look out for us. This is what we bargained for.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you have other homeowners that you are aware of in the neighborhood with home businesses?
Not trafficking anything in. Now, might be some computer businesses that live, in the home doing computer work, but no.
Okay. I'm just curious. My neighborhood, I know of.
And I think anybody, if it was your neighborhoods and businesses coming in, I think you'd probably be thinking, wait a minute now, we don't want this. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to cut off a livelihood, but, I'm sure the need was there. And if she had a building, she could probably fill it up with kids. But we don't want it in the neighborhood. We want to keep it residential.
Any questions of the board? Yes, Mr. Davis.
I'm listening to you and Mr. Hart, Mr. Tart that is coming down, and as well as the previous homeowner president that came down. How many homeowners are in Lansdowne?
I think our president can answer that number. How many?
200. I hear you all very loud.
Yeah. And one thing I do want to add is we have a homeowner association, and we've just been lax because of the pandemic. but I'm the secretary. I've been there, and we invite everybody in the neighborhood to be a part of it. They don't all show up. They're not there, so that things like this could be discussed. And Mr. Bass is always available to talk to. His number is everywhere, flyers, letting people know who the president is. And if you got any problems, you got any question, he's reachable, he's touchable. You don't have to do but call him. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Have a good day.
You too.
Is that four in opposition? I've lost track. Three. Okay. Do we have anyone else for those that would like to speak in opposition? Good afternoon. Your name and address.
Good afternoon. My name is Ida Watson Pines. I live at 3704 Long Ridge Drive East, 36693. I do oppose it, and reason being is that the safety of the children, for number one. We've had a young child to get killed in the neighborhood a few years ago. And children will dart out anywhere. And the more you have, the more they're going to follow another child. So I am opposed to that. And if it's going to be anything with more than what she already has, then I think it should be moved somewhere else. And she can still live in a residence, but if it's more than the 6 that she has, I feel that it should be going in the commercial area. Because if she moves out, once everything is said, it's still going to remain the same. So I feel like it should be moved, because the next thing we will have someone wanting to do a group home. This is our neighborhood, as Ms. Brown has said, and we want to keep it that way. As we get older, we have to settle. We don't have income to keep moving and moving and moving. So I would prefer that if she desires, is to go to a commercial area. There's a lot of empty buildings around that she can set up a daycare and increase it more and more. And that would be to her benefit. And like I said, the children, you can drop them off, yes. But how many times have children been left in a vehicle? It's hot. So I think, like I said, it should be in a commercial area where it can be kind of confined, where the children won't be in the street, because this is right off the government street. Cars fly up and down the neighborhood all the time. So therefore, who would be responsible? The best thing we can do is try to protect the children. And as I said, we've had a child that get killed in the neighborhood before, playing, and the same thing could happen. Hoping that it doesn't happen, but anything can happen when you have children. Even if you're keeping your eyes on them 24/7, it's going to get out of the way sometime. And I just feel like it should be moved somewhere else. And another thing, too, I would like to add is that she was saying that it's always knock down everything that they try to do. I have been going to the Homeowners Association meetings quite frequently. I don't think I've missed hardly any since I've been in the neighborhood over the past 15 years. And if there's anything you would like to discuss, I think you should come to the meetings. And to be honest with you, we have very few. As Ms. Brown said, nobody shows up. I even tried to get people just to come and hear what's going on and voice your input. But I do not recall ever seeing her at a meeting. Not one in the past probably 15 years that I've been there. And that's why I oppose it, because of the safety of the children. And what may transpire later, like I said, a group home, because they are everywhere now. So, and that I definitely would not want.
Any questions of the board? The resident? All right. Well, thank you. All right. That will conclude our comments in opposition. You get a 2-minute opportunity to provide a rebuttal.
For the first gentleman that talked about a sign, I have never advertised with a sign of any business, until y'all put the zoning sign out there. That's the only sign that's ever been out there. I don't need to advertise because word of mouth is that keeps me full. As far as the group home, That is licensed through the state with regulation rules that is only for a group home that is supposed to be in a residential home. If we were outside of the city limits, we wouldn't be having this issue. But because we have our zoning things, I understand that, we need to go through that. But a group family daycare home with 10 children is supposed to be in a residential home. She talks about the children running amok. I have small children. The oldest that I have is Mackenzie's child, and she's 3. They don't run amok. They stay under our supervision at all times. And when we're outside, like I said, I have the privacy fence, so they're not going anywhere because they're on the opposite side of the privacy fence. And as far as, there was one other thing I was going to say. As far as the zoning and everything, I'd like to know why my property does not make and meet the qualifications that the other ones that have passed with Betty Bush's and with Cynthia Hoag's, all the other homes that have had it passed. If I can't prove there's a variance, I think that there's a hardship to your property. I think that it's wrong that you accept the applications in the first place if you know that you can't prove this. And like I said, with the traffic, anybody that lives on my street, you can speak to anyone. I do not have a traffic problem. They come in, I'm only open from 7 to 5. They're gone, before most people go to work, and they're gone before most people get off of work. So, and I have it in my policies, a strict thing about them and the way that they park. So, I try very hard to make sure, because this is I think I've said before, it is my home. I want my property value to be just as high as anybody else's. I take pride in what I do. The need is there. These people have approached me. I didn't, set out to do this, but people within our community, within my own neighborhood, that Matt and Megan Reed that lives on Emily in Vista Ridge. Like I said, the other 2 right up the street have come to me. So I don't understand why the fear of change. I understand that I'm not getting a tattoo parlor or a barber shop or anything like that. These are the same families, and they're families that have multiple children, so you don't have 5 more cars even. The parents that need small, some children need smaller classrooms and one-on-one attention, and you're able to do that better in a family daycare home. And they get to know us better. They are more comfortable when they go to work because they know that their child is learning. And like I said, I think that the fear of our neighborhood has taken hold, and I don't think that that's right for the community.
Any questions or comments?
Oh, and one
Yes,
more
sir.
thing. I was on the board for the Homeowners Association when I first moved in. I chose not to be after that because when they did the group home thing, that they didn't even want to listen to anything that I had to say.
Mr. Morris, I'll start with you.
That was one of the questions I was asked. Why hadn't you attended a homeowners meeting? Why hadn't you attended a homeowners meeting?
Because I have been totally not down with anything I've ever said to them.
I'll say in regards to the subject, I think that's part of your policy when you moved in. If you already established when you moved that, then they have a board that in when you moved in. How did that come about?
How I got to be on the board?
How did that board come about for the community?
Oh, I don't know. There was already there when I moved in.
Okay, did you agree to abide by those policies and rules and regulations of that board?
Not unless I pay dues.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. I'll speak just personally. I'm not speaking for the board, but to your point about how we could have approved others and not yours, I think the difference for me is that, one, as a member of this board, I want to try to help accommodate as best I can within the guidelines that are put forward to us. I think there's a definite need from what we've seen in expanding facilities in order to accommodate the need that seems to be in this community. I think the difference, though, for me then and now is that our attorney has said, this is not the right venue in which, this needs to be decided. And I think that came up because we were seeing more and more of these. I think originally, we'd see, 1 or 2 periodically, but then all of a sudden it seemed like almost every meeting another one was coming up, which I think raised the question from one of our board members. I can't remember, it may have been me, it may have been somebody else that said, hey, what's going on with this? Why are we continuing to see all of these? And so I think it forced the issue of looking deeper into it and saying, answering some questions that we had. And I think through that process is when, our attorney came back and said, after looking into this deeper, I think this is a planning and zoning issue. This is something that doesn't need to be before the variance board. Now, piggybacking on that, then why are you here and why? Yeah, I can't answer that. Unfortunately, did you get caught in the process, unfortunately, of that transition? Very well could have been. But
I do
from
wanna-
my
I was gonna
perspective.
say, but they did have the zoning meeting.
Let him finish.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just was trying to explain that, they did call all the family daycare providers together and invited us to a Zoom meeting saying that more of these were, being approved and that, if we would want to do this, to follow this. I mean, they had that meeting.
I can't speak to that. I can only speak to, my
Right.
involvement in kind of your question as far as, why we approved ones in the past. And now we're taking a different position. And that's just what I was trying to speak to.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Davis.
I want to piggyback on what Mr. Billings is saying here. My position as an individual board member is to be as fair as I can to every applicant that comes to that mic, like you're standing right now, regardless. As he stated, and as it was acknowledged when we had roll call, we have legal counsel. And we have been counseled to the point where we have to take a different approach and look at how we approve or disapprove applications of this nature. Now, I try to be fair, but I feel like when you brought that concern, it sort of hit the integrity of this board and my integrity as an individual member, because I have voted in the past, but recently I have consistently voted in line with counsel, legal counsel. But I try to be fair to everyone. I'm driven by public sentiment, and that's why I asked the question, how many homeowners are in that subdivision? And I see a lot of opposition above normal that comes for an application of this nature, which is why I am concerned.
My thing to that is that, like I said, what they did before, and it was on record, is that they say that I want to open a daycare center. They're not explaining that it's just a variance and it's only with 10 children. And if I was saying that it was going to be a daycare center, I'd be going, whoa, in the middle of the street, But at the end of the street is business already zoned going into.
I've got it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to be considerate both ways. The only thing that I have, I guess, still some confusion. You made a statement that somebody called a meeting of the other home daycares.
Yes.
Was that somebody from the city, or was that a group?
Yes,
that
it was a Zoom. I have the thing on my phone.
Who called the meeting?
Frank Colombo is the one inviting us to a scheduled meeting.
Okay, was that for planning?
That was all. These are all the people that attended or was invited to that Zoom.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Mr. Palumbo held a general meeting with all daycare providers to go over the numerous building and fire code issues that they would face if they went from being a 6-child maximum home daycare to going to a 10-child, as the board was seeing so many of those requests. The point of that meeting, I believe, was to inform all existing home-based daycare owners that if they wish to expand, they would face some significant building and fire code challenges down the road, because as you may remember, some of the ones that have been approved in the past have not been able to get through the building and fire code permitting process due to the vast expense associated with it.
Right. And I think it was, my understanding was to make sure there was no risk or cost experience that would be unnecessary, I think is the best way to describe it.
Well, it was to explain to them that there would be a large cost if they wanted to move forward through this process.
Correct. I know we have our fire official here to represent us on these kind of issues as well.
Yes, there's a significant cost to converting a home to a commercial daycare on the fire department's end. The configuration of the home itself and the location of where the children will be kept. And we try to explain that once, even if it's approved for the variance, that there is a process that needs to be taken care of before they can actually open as a commercial daycare. And we try to relay that to all the participants of the Zoom meeting to let them know that the process of converting to a commercial daycare is lengthy and it is fairly expensive.
Would you take it that that meeting was to possibly discourage that process, or
No, we just
to
want
make them aware?
Just to make them aware. We want everyone to be aware of what the what's going to be required to have that process completed.
Any questions of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Metcalf?
staff,
Thank
if this is denied, are you telling me that when the UDC is approved in January, if that ever happens, that this?
That is correct.
Okay.
The UDC was approved.
Okay, so it's going to go into effect.
Yes.
Okay, so that being the case,
Ms. May, I think we've concluded with your rebuttal. Thank you.
so if the board denies, Ms. May or anyone else can come back in January and make an application to the Planning Commission, which would then have to go to City Council.
That is correct.
Okay, so it's not, it wouldn't be a denial that she couldn't do it. She just wouldn't get her approval here.
That is correct. With the adoption of the UDC in July and the effective date in January, home-based daycares will have a process whereby they have a recommendation from the Planning Commission and final approval from the City Council. They will not come to this board.
Margaret, quick question on that. Is that an actual rezoning or is that just like a conditional use?
It is a conditional use.
Okay.
So the issue of hardship would not be related to evaluating applications under the UDC.
But as far as, say, for example, from the neighbor's standpoint, the question about, that being transferred, it would transfer similarly to if it was a variance with regards to it'd still be zoned R1. It would transfer upon a sale, but it would be limited to what was approved by
That is correct, but it would entail 2 public hearings.
Planning Commission and City Council.
So the applicant and interested parties would have an opportunity to participate.
Thanks.
All right. Any other comments or questions of the board? Once again, I would say that concludes the public hearing on that application. Staff's recommended for denial. We've heard Ms. May's comments and statement regarding her justification for the application variance, and we've had those in opposition. We've also had some written correspondence to the board, some in favor, some in opposition as well. With that, Chair will entertain a motion. I have a second. I have a motion to deny, and I have a second. Thanks. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? I have one opposed. Okay, Ms. May, you understand in January, well, you have 6 months for us for it to come back with a second?
No, sir.
No, so it won't. Okay, so the
With the-
code will change. Hold on. So come January, you'll be under a different code where the UDC will have a different process. And any other applications will have obviously the same consideration in January.
Any applications for a home daycare of over 6 would go through the new process. Correct.
All right. Okay. Your application was denied today. So you'll have in January a different process if you choose to go back for the same. So you can talk to staff after today for guidance. And those of you that are here, either in support or opposition, I'll give you an opportunity to exit at this time if you want. Thank you all for coming in. All right, let's go to application 6467, Jordan Kent Jones. Mr. Metcalf, you need us to take a recess? All right, well, we still have a quorum, so we'll proceed. Application 6467. This is 1315 Creekway Drive. Is the applicant here? You'll come to the podium. Your name and address for the record.
Matt O'Reilly, Poly Survey in Mobile, 5588 Jackson Road.
Okay, and you're representing the applicant?
Yes.
Okay, and the application is recommended for approval by staff with conditions. Is your client in
Yeah,
agreement?
he's agreeable with all conditions.
Okay, any questions of the board for the applicant's rep? Okay, do we have anyone here either in support or opposition to this specific application? All right, that will conclude our public hearing regarding this application. Chair, entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so
Based on staff's recommendation.
I have a motion to approve based on staff's recommendation with a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, now we'll move on to our regular business for today. Application 6470. Oh, wait a minute. Did we ever see the applicant that we skipped earlier? What was that, number 2? Is the applicant for 354 St. Francis Street here? Did they come in later? Okay, remind me for us to get back to that one before we conclude today. All right, we are now on 6470. This is regarding 5557 and 59 North Florida Street. Name and address for the record.
Jerry Bird Surveying, Mobile. 2609 Halls Mill Road. Sorry about that.
Okay, and this application is recommended for denial, so would you tell us why we should consider otherwise?
Just to clarify too, you have 2 letters that's involving this application was submitted.
Are you talking about public comments?
Yes,
Yes.
sir. You
Yeah.
have at your places comments and letters we've received.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You received one today, I think. Well, wait a minute. We sent one in, and I think one was sent direct to y'all. Corey Penn and Fred Richardson.
Yes.
Okay.
So back to this application was recommended for denial. Will you tell us why we should consider otherwise?
First, I would like to point out I have Mr. and Miss Green, owners of Bay Barbecue, with me today. Mr. Green's up there. This is Miss Green. They certainly would like to keep it like it is. We requested 3 variances. One would be the front setback for the deck and side yard setback for the deck. Side yard, if the deck is extended out, I mean, it's almost a no-brainer. It's in line with the building. We can't move the building. And that side of the deck is about 8 feet from the driving lane, from the curb. The front corner coming back, yes, it's inside of the 25-foot setback, but it's also about 20 feet from the curb of Florida Street. Mr. Green was unaware a permit was required when he constructed it. He built the deck at the time that COVID came in. He had already endured the construction of Florida Street. COVID was about to depress the business more. He wanted to provide a place possible customers could sit at without fear of that. Really today, the deck is seasonal. It's too hot to sit out there. Their business hours are 11 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. 5 in the afternoon, it's still 85, 90 degrees. I guess in the middle of the winter, it's freezing cold on the cold days. Today, it's acting like an open porch. There's a ramp up, and use it to get into the front door. I had mentioned about decks downtown built in the street right of way. There's a statement in the staff report that kind of unusual, I think, for operating in the city of Mobile, where it says that most of the decks used for dining downtown are within the right of way. Thus, the zoning ordinance has no jurisdiction. If the deck was built over the sidewalk out in the street, zoning ordinance wouldn't apply to this. But it is where it is, and we're asking to leave it like it is. Second request was for parking, off-site, and number of parking spaces. Mr. Wimpy, who owns the property this is located, as well as the 2 properties south of this, has submitted a letter, which is in the staff report, that he's agreeable that they can park there. Other businesses in the city with no parking on site. Callahan's at Marine Street in Charleston, that's in the Oakley Garden District. And a business at the corner of Monroe and Stocking Street, which is about 2 blocks south of the old recycle center on Government Street, which is Garden Center now. The last business that was there was called Spiffy Fox. They have absolutely no parking on site. That's in the Lancoff district. We have parking on site and allowances for parking on the 2 neighboring properties. As far as the parking surface, the aggregate has been in place for 20 years, 22. According to Google Earth, it shows on it. There were other businesses prior to Bay Barbecue going into this building. So the aggregate has served for them. And another restaurant in Oakley Garden District, the Hummingbird Way Oyster Bar, has an aggregate parking lot. Okay, maybe it was approved, but it's aggregate. Aggregate is okay for a restaurant. We're not asking for anything unusual. The approval of the parking deck or the dining deck where it is, the number of parking spaces, the parking surface, has all been allowed in the past in Mobile.
Okay, any questions of the board for the applicant's rep?
I've got a question.
Yes.
Maybe ever looked at how many people max will this seat at one time? The restaurant, inside and out.
Go ahead and
Green
you
may
will
be
give
able
us
to
your
answer
name
that
and
one.
address.
Jaquita Powell Green, 59 North Florida Street, Mobile, Alabama, 36607.
And that's all right. I mean, if you don't know,
It's 12 to 15.
Yeah.
We have a private meeting here. That's with the deck.
Yeah.
We have, from the counter to some of you have been in. It's a very small space.
inside dining area is only like 540 square feet.
Yeah.
You can speak.
Thank you to the board. I would also like to thank our landlord, Paul Wimpy, and Mr. Bird. Trying to get a surveyor has just been horrendous. I'd like to also thank our architect, Carlos Gant. We have gone through, it has just been tumultuous trying to get someone to work on this project for us. And we're just happy that we finally have these folks engaged to help us navigate this process. My family and my husband and I've been in this Mobile community operating businesses over 20 years, and I've never had to come before this board. And I pray that once we go through this process and all the boxes are checked, we shall never come again. This would be my favor. We have seen such a tremendous number of small businesses, especially restaurants. Our friends have to close during this time. We made it through the Florida Street construction, trying to get the drainage fit. We remember Whistle Stop on the other side. I'm born and raised here. We are not trying to self-impose hardship on ourselves. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to survive, to fight another day, to be here to service the community, the greater Mobile community, and just provide quality service at a time when there's little or much of that. We have about three employees. One of them, he goes to my alma mater. His name is Jack. He rode his bike up to the restaurant and asked for a job. That is what we are about. And hopefully you will allow us this grace and this period on my birthday so that we can move forward and not backwards with the Mobile community that I love. Thank you.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah. Ma'am, this has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about here, but from what I understood, from what I've heard and observed, is that you really had nothing but troubles since you first tried to open this thing, including health department. Is that correct?
Oh, no, Dr. Ashel, he's wonderful.
Okay, because
the
I knew
health
there
department
was a big delay in opening or
Well,
something. Anyway, it has nothing to do with this, but I congratulate you and I want you to succeed.
Thank you. Tell your father.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
I do, Mr. Chairman. One's a question and one's a comment, and probably maybe more for you, Jerry. I know there's a comment in the report from the fire department. Currently, fire has 2 open violation cases for this business, including a stop cooking order. They had a fire last year that relates directly with a code violation case that was opened in 2020. It's never received a CO for the original permit in 2017. It's never received a past life safety inspection from our division for a fire final for the building permit. Owner has a history of not being code compliant. The business should not open to the public at all without the proper permits and inspection. Do you know anything about this, or if that's been cleared up?
What part were you reading from?
Fire department comments, page 2.
Yeah.
Michelle, you know anything about it?
The original building permit that was issued to Bay Barbecue, they were not going to do any cooking on site. The condition of the permit also was there would be no indoor seating. In order for them to do that, they would have to resubmit for a new permit to be considered a assembly 2, which would allow indoor seating and cooking operations. The fire that took place was in a smoker that was not UL listed to be used indoors. And the fire department, we did issue notices of violations. And to this day, to my knowledge, they've never been addressed.
What about any CO in general for occupancy?
There has been no final inspection for the fire department to be allowed to issue a certificate of occupancy.
The fire department is the last step of the CO, correct?
Yes, because we do the life safety.
Thank you. You have something to add for this gentleman? Yes.
They do have, like you mentioned, Carlos Gant, architect, involved. He recommended that they get the Board of Adjustment, possibly, approval from Board of Adjustment for these items. Okay. Then he can proceed on. There's no sense in him coming up with a fire plan or in anything involving indoor seating if it's not approved. Indoor seating.
Oh, let me ask, are we looking at occupancy issues today? I think we're looking at setbacks.
You're looking at actual dining area, which the outside would be counted, kind of piggybacking on what the fire department said when we issued a zoning clearance for the business license a few years back. It was for takeout only, no dine-in. That means both within the business or for a deck built outside. So the purpose of this application before you right now is strictly due to the deck and its setback violations and the increase in occupancy in terms of inadequate parking.
Right.
I will point out, based on this plan, in the absence of parking data for the other two buildings, we don't know how inadequate this is for the 3 lots.
And Mr. Chairman, that was the comment that I wanted to make, is that hopefully we're doing all this so the business can be successful, because it does seem like it has had an inordinate amount of roadblocks over the years. But in kind of the same light where we approved, I think, the variance for the building, next to the Dewdrop, and the idea that, trying to accommodate and allow for outdoor seating and some expanded restaurant use. I drive by there almost every day, and there seems to be a parking jam right now because they're all doing really well, and people are putting up no parking signs and, chains and stuff across parking lots. And so my only comment is that, maybe we look at and just make sure that those 2 off-site, facilities that I guess are also owned by the same owner, can handle that, because that area already seems to be pretty heavy with the ice cream shop and with Butch Cassidy's. And so that would be my comment. It's just, it was hard for me to ascertain in the report kind of what your use would be, how many people if you were full, and then what the capacity would be in the 2 adjoining properties.
Well, it hasn't. Has there been a complaint about the parking concerning Bay Barbecue?
Well, my comment's not based on any previous complaints. It's just on, like what we did, I think, at next to the Dewdrop is, helping to accommodate to me a situation that would allow for an expanded restaurant use, with the idea that there was a lot of parking in the rear, but for whatever reason people don't seem to be using that, or maybe it's just exceeding that capacity. But it just seems like to me that going forward, after the decision was made and everything was done, there seems to be kind of a logjam there, not wanting to create. And so in my mind, thinking about, well, if we go through and we approve these things to allow for additional seating outdoor and things like that, is there the adequate parking within those 3 properties that wouldn't create a burden on other people?
Well, of course, mentioning Dewdrop brings to mind Nixon's across the road, which is another restaurant that doesn't have very much on-site parking.
And that's case in point. That's what
right.
that's the whole reason I'm bringing it up.
What we're doing is
helping
not
his
what
point.
isn't already across the city.
Okay.
And then too, we have the Midtown area, which I wasn't as familiar with. We traditionally have a lot of walking traffic, so they'll walk from Butch's to Old Dutch or to us. Sometimes we can glean some Butch traffic, but it's becoming more walkable in that area. As I stated before, our employee was riding his bike, so we have not experienced, unfortunately, the big bad breakfast Dewdrop effect. But Target, people will walk, and we have Those are chains. We are local, shop local, eat local. Local businesses are the ones that need your help and support.
Okay. I think the architect. No, he's not. Okay.
He's not here.
All right. Yeah. All right. Do we have? Yes, Mr. Morris.
You mentioned that you do have the architect doing drawing to come up to staff with the fire department code.
Yeah, that's what they said.
But it's based on a decision that we make here today if they move forward on that.
Then he could go forward knowing that it would be okay with the city.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
And it has nothing to do with the applicants. It has to do with this board. My spirit was vexed by the last applicant when, in my opinion, she attacked this board. But I want to say to everyone who's here now, perhaps hearing Mr. Metcalf and Mr. Millings, it sort of gives a better aroma of what this board is really about. And we're really about helping and making things better. And I just want to say I really appreciate what you all have said. That's my comment.
Okay. Do we have anyone in the audience that wish to speak at this time in support of this variance request? Do we have anyone in opposition? Okay, I think that'll conclude our public hearing on this. My understanding is no matter what we decide today, they'll still have to come back and deal with the fire and some other permitting areas.
Yes, sir. If they're going to be able to have indoor seating, then a separate, a different permit would have to be issued stating that and giving all the details of what the business will be doing.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time here today.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Anything from staff before we call for a motion? All right. Well, as stated, we have two letters in support from one, Mr. Richardson, and also from Mr. Penn, both in support from what I can read. We obviously have to take into concern the current safety and restrictions that have been placed on this facility until such time that it's given any kind of improvements. All right, Chair, I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Any conditions first?
Nope.
And do I have
Time out. Yeah.
We need conditions. When the board has approved previously and there are known violations of building and fire code, or that we would be creating violations of those codes.
I got you. I'm with you. Okay.
We do
Move
need
for
to
approval as applied for, with the exception of the fire issues to be fire and building codes to be addressed.
I have a motion with conditions and a second.
Can I have just a clarification or question based on that? With regard to my concern about making sure that the parking is adequate, I mean, is there any feel that parking on the additional two properties is adequate, or we're just not worried about that? Or?
Mr. Milling?
Yes.
Since I made the motion, my opinion about that is that the nature of her business. I'm familiar with the Big Bad Breakfast thing. I tried one time and left. I don't think, a barbecue business of that size, I'm sure we would all like for it to as the applicant said, to be one of those. It's not a high traffic business. Given its size, I don't think it's going to be an issue. I understand. I know all the neighbors around there, as y'all do, but that's why I didn't make any provision for that in my motion.
Okay. One follow-up question, and I'll let it go. The current uses of the other two buildings, what are those uses? There's a warehouse building. Is that the old Penelope's Closet, or is it?
That's actually closed. That's actually owned by Roy Seawer, Butch Cassidy's. I sold that to him. And then you've got Paul Wimpy's Flooring.
is it his warehouse?
Yes. And I think what you're addressing or questioning is what is in the staff report. And that is, and it's going back to the business next to the dewdrop. At this point, we don't know how deficient the overall site is in terms of parking. The board can approve it as motioned, and it would be approved to this parking lot as laid out. But you don't know how deficient it is in terms of minimum parking requirements as it relates to zoning ordinance standards. The restaurant, based on the square footage of the building and the deck alone, would require 18 spaces. What we don't know is number of warehouse employees and how much showroom space, how the parking ratios break down on the other two lots.
All right, last comment. I want his business and y'all's business to be successful. Very much do, and absolutely. I've followed your business over the years, just knowing what's been going on Florida Street and COVID. My brother goes there all the time, says it's the best ribs in town. So, it's one of those things. My only concern is that we would be creating a hardship on the adjoining properties, which may not be happening but it doesn't have anything really to show us. And so if it was up to me, and with all due respect to Mr. Metcalf, I would, probably have requested a holdover just to get clarification on that to make sure we are comfortable. But that being said, if the board wants to go ahead and move forward with approval, I'm fine, and we'll vote,
Well, my concern is the building codes, making sure that, right, correct. I'm just making a statement, and that those are addressed so that they can proceed and be successful as well. Okay, we have a motion to approve, a second. Any other comments of the board? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, we have one opposed and 6 in support. The variance is approved.
And piggybacking on what Mr. Milling said, I haven't had the ribs, but if you ever have a craving for some smoked brisket, go there. It is fantastic.
And I will ask that you work closely with our friends in the fire department. Make sure everything's safe. Okay. All right, we are on application 6. Is that correct? Which is the 6471, 6399, 6281, 6280. Is this regarding 65 Sidney Phillips Drive? And I think we've seen these folks before.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Your name and address.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Zito. I reside at 6633 Sugar Creek Drive South here in Mobile.
Okay, now the staff's this is kind of a little different. They've recommended a holdover for a revised site plan and additional parking information, including the relocation of any fencing that restricts circulation or that new paved compliant parking be approved. So, have you seen the staff's recommendation?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Are you in agreement, or would you like to proceed?
I'm not in agreement exactly.
Okay, well, then we'll proceed.
We'll proceed. I would like to suggest that this variance has already been heard in a slightly different context. We were here last year. It was case 001656-2021 when if you would go to the slide that shows the different tenants. One more, there you go. Last year, the one that you can see the volleyball courts kind of drafted in there. Last year, we came for a variance because that was currently warehouse. And we asked for it to be allowed to be I forgot the exact term, but it would be a volleyball training facility. and the other places were already there, legal or not, that's the question. But the other volleyball, the Amp Fitness in the middle, the vacant space between Amp Fitness and the LA volleyball, that one, yes. That variance included all of those spaces. It's clear, it's included suites 100, 110, 120, 130, and 140. We went through all the math, showed everything that was required, and I think that was it was eventually granted, but I think it was granted by this board. It was recommended.
I think I've heard two on this particular location over the last 5 years. Excuse me, sir, just for a second. We're just getting clarification for staff.
Okay. Well, this site came before the board before. It was Storm Volleyball and Amp Fitness. They received their variances for approval, and I believe they failed to complete the building code permitting process. They were operating without permits, and they were discovered by the fire department because they were in a warehouse that was full of combustibles with no separation and so on. So they went through the appropriate Board of Adjustment process, got approval, did not complete that process, had to come back and get variance again or an extension of that approval. They still, to my knowledge, did not complete all of the permitting processes to get final approval. In the meantime, this other use came in, the Lower Alabama volleyball group. They also got the use variance that's required, and they got the parking ratio variance because with their addition, they were going to increase the parking beyond what was apparently available on the site. And that was also approved by the board. They did complete all of their required building and fire code permits and are operating legally. However, when they came through, the other two approvals had expired at that point. So technically, the approved parking ratio variance wasn't necessary at that time. Now that the first two are having to come back to get approvals yet again, that's triggering the need for the parking ratio variance with this application instead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you had something you wanted to...
Yeah, I'd like to, Mr. Hoffman is, of course, exactly correct. I would like to say, though, that the site plan, this is only a portion of it. I have it with me, but I don't have 7 copies. That's a portion of it, but the site plan that was submitted for the variance request showed all the tenant spaces, all the square footage, all the required parking. So the parking was a lump sum number required, a lump sum number provided, and that's what this Board of Adjustment approved. So it didn't approve it contingent upon these other people becoming into compliance or that they were there or not there. There was no comments about that from the board approval. So we would like to get that. We'd like to go back to that point where we can approve and have all of these businesses operating properly.
Okay, any questions of the board for the applicant?
I've got one. With regards to Storm Volleyball not having complied with any of these previously, what's to ensure that they will now?
I have checked with Todd McClung, the building official, just a few weeks ago to ask him what is outstanding, if anything, for the Storm Volleyball place to come into compliance. And he said the only thing he has outstanding is there's a ramp connecting the Amp Fitness, Amp Performance to the Storm Volleyball. It's like 2 foot 8 inches lower. And there was a ramp that was too steep, wasn't proper. And they had made some adjustments. I'd drawn some plans to fix it. They didn't fix exactly per the plan, so they went back and are fixing it again. I believe the fire department has been through there. They did install all the emergency lights, exit lights, corrected the lighting, corrected electrical deficiencies. Assuming Mr. McClung was only looking for that ramp to be repaired.
Two other items relating to why staff is recommending holdover. As seen on the photograph, both in the staff report and on the screen, a lot of aggregate has been added to the site on the east side, where it was originally kind of a mixture of grass and dirt and old aggregate, all the way up to the north side of the property. Probably back in the 80s, maybe to the early 90s, this site had been used with aggregate before, but it had been grown through with grass. So the site plan doesn't show this part. And then if you can advance the next slide. It also appears that additional parking has been striped in here along Sidney Phillips Drive that is actually partially sticking into the right-of-way now. And that, I don't believe, is shown on the site plan submitted.
No, it's not, and we weren't asking for that to be approved. I don't know how they got there. I didn't draw it on any site plan. Is it gravel all the way up to the north edge now? Okay. Because we did have approved some gravel to get up to the new entrance and the handicap parking, which was a concrete slab. But I don't guess I was aware that they had actually had gravel all the way down, all the way up the street.
Any other questions? Okay. Either any of you gentlemen have anything to add? Okay. Do we have anyone here that's in opposition today to the application? Okay, we don't have any yet for the record. Ms. Allen, anything from the fire department standpoint?
Everything the fire department required has been satisfied.
Okay, good to hear. All right. Well, this one building or complex, we've sure had a lot that I can remember.
Just to refresh the board's memory, it was originally the warehouse for Gafers, and
Then it was a furniture warehouse at one time too.
partially. I don't think the warehouse itself was ever fully utilized once Gafers went out of business.
All right. You have something else?
I'd also like to add that it's my understanding from the owners, so I guess it's hearsay, but there's loading dock doors all along Sidney Phillips Drive. But at that time, you had to back in off of the street, and that just created headaches and all. So there's no other good use for that side of the building regarding trucks and deliveries and such. So its ability to return to use as a warehouse is very unlikely, very problematic because of access by trucks.
Well, the one thing that kind of comes to mind with this application is that they were asking for a revised site plan. So, with the understanding that we do have some parking that's been striped in the right of way, and probably just need kind of cleaned up the site plan, if the board should request that as a condition, would that be something that would be difficult to provide?
I'd be glad to do that. Yeah, I can certainly provide that site plan.
All right. Any other comments, questions of the board? All right, that'll conclude the public hearing on this application. I would state that if the board should choose to approve that they require an updated site plan be provided, if a motion is made in favor of the application.
Mr. Guest,
Yes.
to staff, if you have that and then it meets your requirements, does that take care of the concerns or questions that you have?
I can't speak to parking that extends into the right-of-way. That's going to be a right-of-way or traffic engineering issue.
Yeah.
In terms of granting the parking ratio variance request, if you go back to the site plan that shows the overall site, on the lower left-hand side, you see that diagonal line barely. That's the fence that divides the parking area that really serves all the volleyball uses from the remainder of the building that is still in warehouse use and has primarily truck circulation and access to all the warehouse stores. So technically, there is enough paved area on the site to meet parking requirements if that fence could be moved. There may be lease agreements that prevent it, I don't know.
Yeah.
But certainly, providing a revised plan and basing any approval on a previously approved parking ratio variance may seem reasonable.
I guess, to me, in Mr. Zito's defense, I handled that building for about 4 years when I was a white spunner, and I would agree with him. It should never be converted to warehouse. I tried to lease it for warehouse for years, and it doesn't work anymore. But it seems like our typical model is not to approve subject to a revised site plan, and it seems like based on the history of this property of kind of non-compliance, why not hold it over for 30 days, let them clean up the site plan, and then make sure that we're covering all those details instead of, kind of approving it with these after the fact type. That seems like our typical process.
Well, if you wish to make a motion to hold it over, that'll be your prerogative.
Mr. Zito, is there any issue with regards to the operation of the business or anything that y'all are against a 30-day holdover to get these items cleaned up?
Well, I knew that the city is not going to appreciate parking into the right of way. I don't know how much they would allow us to park on gravel. I would like to make one other comment though, based on what was just being said. The total parking that's on this site plan and was on the previous site plan includes the warehouse. If you go back to the site plan with the parking, there you go. You can't hardly see it, but there's a handicap space and striping going into that lower part of the warehouse area. So that whole bottom 2/3 of that left side is Metri warehousing. That's their office area. That's their parking. A warehouse doesn't need but a handful of people. And that's all been approved, permitted, blessed, everything's happened. The north end has been there for some time. There's currently offices and so forth in the northwest corner, and there's parking outside of that. We accounted for that parking on the north side, the parking on the northwest side of the loading dock area. You see little circles with numbers in it. So all that parking, the whole larger lot, you're correct, it is fenced off from the rest of the property. I don't know how important that is, except the thing was just to keep trucks from coming out the other way. Trucks could come on around the whole site and come out this lower driveway, which, in fact, there's even a fence there. It's shown there. I don't think it's really there anymore. But that driveway was recently repaired because it was all full of potholes. But I believe the fence is there to keep trucks from coming around the rest of the parking lot. So.
Thanks.
All right. Any other comments? Okay. Staff recommended a holdover for some of this to be cleaned up. As Mr. Milling stated, it would probably be to our benefit to have a clearer picture of what's being approved and not. But I'll leave it for the board to consider.
I'll make a motion that we hold it over for 30 days to allow for an updated site plan.
Second.
We have a motion to hold it over 30 days with a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We'll see you guys in 30 days. Yes, sir. You gonna recuse yourself on this? Okay. All right. We're on application 6472, 5526, 5484, 5160, 391. Brew of Columbus. And Mr. Golden has recused himself. That leaves 6 members present. We still have a quorum, and we'll proceed. Yes, sir. Your name and address.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. My name is Tillman Brown, and I am a member of the crew of Columbus. And we have reviewed the staff report and their findings, and we totally concur with their findings, and we agree with everything that's in the staff report. The only thing that we probably ought to clean up from that is that, for whatever reason, I don't know how this nomenclature evolved over 100 and something years, but it's naming this structure as a float barn. It's not a barn. It's certainly just a warehouse that's a modern structure that is totally, at least meets code or probably exceeds building code. And we've already had a pre-meeting with the city and gone over all of the requirements. We're more than willing to accept all of the requirements needed and landscaping and everything that goes along with that.
Okay.
And I am here for answering any questions that you might have.
Any questions for the applicant? And the applicant stated they're in agreement with staff's recommendations for approval subject to conditions. I take it you're for the application? Anything to add? Okay.
This is our president of the organization.
Okay. And you folks are in support or opposition? Yeah. Okay, I'm getting ready to call you down then. Yeah. All right. If you will, one at a time, 4 of you. Take your time. You've been patient with us all this time. Yes. Yeah. Price is right.
Again, good afternoon. I am Mary M. Turner, 769 Gorgas Street, Mobile, Alabama, a native resident of Mobile 85 years. I've taught in the school system 55. I'm here to oppose the ordinance of building a float house, float barn, or a building on the corner of Kentucky and Washington Avenue. I do have in my hand a listing of persons who have opposed this operation. Again, I am here to speak on behalf of those persons who live in what we call the Oakdale area of Mobile, Alabama, which is from the railroad track at Washington Avenue and Pillins down to Brooklyn Field. There are other areas beyond the trestle going to Fort Whiting and Brooklyn Field that this float house, float building could be built. But we are here today to say we oppose it for the particular reasons of, number one, the senior citizens who live in the community, the children and the people who send their children to school, to council, to Craighead and other places. I am here in position to speak on the opposition of it because when I-10 is backed up from here to there, they come up Washington Avenue speeding and traffic is terrible for us to get out on Gorgas, Shawnee, Kentucky. Even the railroad track stops the cars and residents who live there in the area from going and coming. When the trains are on the track, we wait. When buses and cars come up Washington Avenue and get off of I-10, we wait. Now we want to build a float house, a building, and we'll still have to wait, and there will be no place for the children and some of the old people to get out of. Just recently, I had to take my nephew to Mobile Infirmary. The traffic was so heavy on Washington Avenue and Gorgas, I had to almost wait to get him to Mobile Infirmary. What do you think 1 block over at Kentucky would happen if they put a float house, a float building, or any opposite that would keep us from living there comfortably? It is a residential area. I have lived here long enough. There's a float house at Gale in Texas. There's a float house at the railroad track in Gale. There's a float house down by the Coast Guard, the old crew of Columbus. I have watched them come in and out, and traffic has been bad. If you want to know the truth, they need to find another well-positioned to build their float house.
Mr. Chairman.
Before you sit down, we have
Mount Cedar petition.
Here they are.
Go.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. Any questions for the resident?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Metcalf.
Ma'am, I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
Of course you're
The-
not.
Absolutely not. But a float barn, a warehouse.
Well, that's what they call it.
No,
Okay.
no. I'm telling you, it's a warehouse.
I know it is.
And they are utilized to pick up floats and drive them out on whatever day during Mardi Gras. And the rest of the time, unless there's some, generally there's some kind of party or something like the day before. And then right across the street from it is a 94,000 square foot warehouse that used to be Smith's Bakery. And I know you have concerns, but I can't see why somebody building on a vacant piece of property could interfere with safety of children or old people, and the use of a building as a float barn is the most innocuous use that a warehouse can have, other than being non-occupied. Okay, so I just wanted to say that to you.
Yes, thank you. As a teacher, I understand what you're saying, but also I'm going to say to you, building the building there, right behind the Alabama Power transformer place, would not be a good idea either. But if you all see it that way, that would be nothing we can do, but we can oppose it today, letting you know our feelings here and living in the community over 40, 50, 60, 70 years. There are many people that love that area as a residential area. Of course, we have Old Malby's Bakery. We also have Smalls on Broad Street. We also have the fire department next to it. We have a restaurant that didn't do good and it's closed and open and closed and open. And down Washington Avenue, there are areas that could be used if they would utilize and look at it. But all we're here today is to let you know that we are opposed to having a residential building built there to hold floats as they come in and out. It doesn't matter when they're used, it will still be there and a deterrent, because cars and the people in those cars will be coming in and out of that neighborhood with it.
Before you sit down, I have a question for you, but also one for staff. This is currently zoned B3. So tell me what would be some of the potential use by
Okay.
right.
Residential.
No, it's not residential. It's listed as B3.
No, ma'am, it is zoned B3. Now, floats, decoration, and construction are not allowed in B3. It requires B4, B5, I1, and I2 with planning approval.
So what's allowed?
However, a warehouse up to 40,000 square feet is allowed by right, and that's a warehouse of any nature. This is 50,000, 10,000 square feet over. That would be allowed at this site, but it would require planning approval from the Planning Commission. But you can
Because
have
they're
car.
fabricating, because they're making the floats.
Well, just because of the size. The 40,000 square foot is the tipping point. But B3 allows car lots, bars, restaurants, fast foods, etc., grocery stores, hardware stores, big box.
And again, Malby's Bakery is 94,000 feet.
Well, it's very much non-conforming.
All right.
I handled it for years.
All right. Ma'am, was there ever, in the past anything on this site that you can remember?
It was an empty field at one time, but it had a building on it. On the other side, it was a housing. It was a house for people who worked at Brooklyn Field. They lived there. That was long ago when I was a child. But of course, Malby's Bakery was there all the time before they put Pullman's at Virginia and Broad. There were homes that people lived in that area, and it was homes on both sides. And where that pulley place is on the north side of the railroad track, that used to be housing, but they put that building there. And then they had a nightclub on Pillins also, but all the rest of it is all residential.
Well, I wanted to make sure you understood, and those individuals that are here with you, that the information we have, this is listed as a B3. It's a business property. So something, as Mr. Metcalf was stating, potentially more active could be on this, potentially on this site. More intense activity. But we want to hear everybody's opinion, so I wanted to share that with you.
All right. Yes, I understood it. I knew it.
Okay, thank you. Others that would like to speak? Thank you again. Good afternoon. Your name and address.
Afternoon. My name is Carolyn Williams Johnson. I reside at 752 Kentucky Street here in Mobile. I'm opposed of the float bond or whatever it's going to be. We are elderly people in that neighborhood. I've been on that street 60 years. I stayed on Bayou Street all my life. I was born and raised on Bayou Street between Maryland and Montgomery. I'm between Scott and Furnace Street. We are at the end of the service road. I'm opposed because we as senior citizens, we wouldn't be able to get out of our residence in case of a fire, which I had one a couple of months ago at my home. I have had to get the ambulance to come to my home. And the reason why I oppose, because, like I say, it's elderly people, it's children, but the neighborhood is not like it used to be. We used to have 50 and 60 children in that neighborhood. The property where the Alabama Power had that generator system there, it used to be houses. I would love to see houses put in that area to build our property value up. A lot of people are moving out. We know Airbus is going to get fruitful. But I'm just concerned about the safety of the residents in that area. Because on Kentucky Street, right in front, where they're going to build a float house, it's people on sticks, on canes. And, you know, during Mardi Gras season, they have their parties, traffic backed up. We already seeing traffic backed up from the interstate. We're near the end of the interstate. So I wish they would reconsider. I know if they got a business, and we got to live. And we've been living there over 50-something years. And I just wish that they could find somewhere else to build their float house or whatever, because we are in a quiet neighborhood. We don't have no violence up in that particular area where we are, or anything. But you know, traffic gonna be backed up during the holidays, during the parade season, because people won't be able to get out of their yards, get to the street to get to where they're going and everything. But I just oppose. And I just wish that they'll reconsider and find somewhere else. Our church wanted to buy that property years ago. They wouldn't sell it to us to put a church up in that area. Now they want to put up on a Mardi Gras house up in there. But I'm just concerned about our safety. Thank you.
Okay, any questions of the board? All right, thank you. Ms. Morris, Mr. Morris has a question.
Got a question?
Like for staff to put up, like, blueprint, the last page.
You can have a seat. Thank you.
Okay, will you explain to how the float house is set in and what direction they bring the floats in and out?
Access to the site for vehicles, and that includes the floats, is going to be limited to Washington Avenue. There's no direct access to Kentucky Street. The building here, this is Kentucky Street here. You'll have landscaping here as well along the Kentucky Street side, as well as tree plantings, which are required by code along Washington Avenue.
So the open space that we're saying lot one, would that be just parking and just space for them to utilize? Or?
No, that's just.
That's this property here.
Okay, no, I was speaking of where beside the yellow side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
railroad track side.
here.
Yeah, up in that part there. Now you got the building,
Go
like
back
about halfway there, am I right?
Go back there. There you go. Where it says lot one.
Yeah. What's happening in that space there?
That's just open space. If you see these lines coming through here, this probably shows it better. The property's in a flood zone, and that is hold on, I'm trying to.
I can answer all of those questions if you'd like.
We'll let you do that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I've got two other individuals I need to allow to speak on it.
In short, you can see the darker color that encroaches onto the property. That's floodway as mapped by FEMA, which means moving water is expected in that area. So there's very little that can be built in that area.
Okay. All right. Two more individuals that would like to speak. Your name and address, please.
My name is Brendalyn Williams Pettaway. I live at 760 Kentucky Street. And I'm here to oppose the warehouse siting. First of all, I've lived on Kentucky since 1999. And that area has, I know they said that they keep up with the property of the designated float house or warehouse. Well, on Kentucky Street at Washington Avenue, in front of that property line, on Kentucky, the side of that property line, when grass is cut, it blocks the drainage. It floods on Kentucky Street. It floods a lot on Washington Avenue, and it's causing the street to deteriorate on Kentucky Street. It's causing Washington Avenue to deteriorate. Our cars are not, how you call it when you get the alignment and you're going down the street. Street keep getting repaired and it keeps sinking due to the flooding that heads all the way down past Scott Street in Kentucky, which is entering into my neighborhood. So on Kentucky to Washington Avenue, when we have rain, it's backed up from Washington Avenue, headed to Scott, coming towards that second neighborhood, coming back past that Alabama Power. So, yes, I oppose it because when you have to get out, you cannot go down Kentucky Street. You have to alter your route due to the flooding and poor drainage, which could cause my area to flood and my house. So they want us to have flood insurance and all of this. And with that backup with the drainage, it's a hindrance. And when we called the city to repair, where they put that black tar on it, and with the rain, it's back where it started from. So yes, I do oppose the float house being there. I would appreciate it. And it also reflect our value to our homes.
Any questions of the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Ma'am, just for the record, this board does not consider any engineering or drainage. That's all handled by the city engineering department. And as far as the streets being in bad shape, I understand. I live in Midtown. That's a public works matter. That has nothing to do with this. And actually, when that property is improved, if it is built on, then there will be considerations made to detain the water that's now just running off freely. So anyway, you don't need to respond. I'm just telling you that this board has no jurisdiction or anything relating to drainage, streets, or anything like that. Just let you know.
I did want to respond.
Oh, well, okay.
The reason I wanted to respond is when the property is being manicured, the grass come to the street, and they don't come around edge the area. That dead grass, it sits there. When it rains, it goes into the drain.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, that's what I was trying to
We appreciate
inform.
it. Thank you. And your name and address as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Bindoff. I live at 813 Kentucky Street, right in front of the field where they're trying to build the float house barn, and I am against it because we have one on Broad Street where Naaman's at. We got one at the end, a dead end of Kentucky Street, and then we got one down in Brooklyn Field, and we got one on Conception. I think that's enough barn down the bay. So I am opposing, and I'm the one went round and got the names, everybody's name on that opposed, and they live right where I live. So I appreciate they not build one. They want to build something, do something for the senior citizen down there, for the community. That's what I want. Thank you.
What was your name again, please?
Deborah Bindoff.
Your
Number
address?
one on the list.
What's your address?
813 Kentucky Street, right in front of the field.
Any questions of the board?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you. We're going to give the applicant time for rebuttal.
For the first time, Mr. Chairman and members of this board, upon entering this building, I sat at the top in the corner. But before coming in, I noticed all of these ladies.
Just a little loud.
Okay. For the first time since I've been on this board, I sat at the top without coming down. And prior to entering the building, I sat in the lobby. And I noticed all of these ladies coming in, struggling with their physical conditions. That caught my attention. Not knowing what you are here for. Now, after hearing why you're here and the concerns that you have for your community, I know your concerns are serious and real. I know that based upon what you had to come through to get here in the weather. And the first lady, the school teacher, the educator, she has not pulled her raincoat off since coming in. And I noticed how she was bossing all of you around, saying where she's going to sit, because I want to be able to get to the mic, okay? So I feel what you're saying, and I see the signatures that have come out of the community. And the church that tried to buy the property, I don't know what church that is that was trying to buy it. Reverend Daniels. Right, you all are down on Duval now at the interstate. Okay. I hear what you're saying, and I trust that the persons who are trying to bring that float house, barn house, etc., will hear you all as well. Because I think that while you are here, it's very, very serious to you and the ongoing community development down there. But I wanted to make that statement to let you all know that I hear you personally from where I sit.
We're going to give the applicant 2 minute time to rebuttal.
Yes, thank you. We will address all of the issues that were brought up. The first one was traffic. Our subcontractor who builds the floats has 4 employees, and they only work probably 2 or 3 months out of the year, and that's pretty much it. All the rest of the year, those floats just sit in that warehouse. There is, at Mardi Gras time, we open the doors for the members to come down and see the floats, but there's no parties, there's no all of that stuff. It's just a float revealing a situation. We want to be great neighbors. We want to be good neighbors. One of the first things that we looked at when we looked at that property was the residents that keep up their property so nicely on Kentucky Street. So that is why, if you notice the site plan, we specifically put in a lot of landscaping on that side of the building and no access to that side of the building, no driveway cuts or anything like that. Everything will be on towards Washington Avenue. As far as the stormwater or the drainage situation, the flooding, as Ms. Pappas pointed out, the north side of that property has drainage there. We will come under ADAM's directive there, and we will abide by or exceed all stormwater management issues that are required when you build a structure like this. So probably we will be enhancing the drainage in that area as opposed to what's there right now, because it's just running off into the streets. And then as far as float barns being in that area, there's a specific reason for that, is the floats have to be close to the parade route. And the parade route is in downtown Mobile. So it's not like we can go a lot of other places. We have to be in that vicinity so that we're close by the parade routes. And I think that addressed every question that was brought up.
Tillman, just quick question about the viewing. How does that work in more detail? I mean, will that be something, the reveal that you talked about? I mean, is that something that is, a couple days before, or is it, how does that work for y'all?
It's just a 3-hour situation. The float doors are opened up, and the members and their family come down and take a look at the floats. And so if the weekend before, and if the parking situation, we have plenty of land there that they could park on the property itself. As far as that event and or in and around, there's Broad Street, there's Washington Avenue, there's lots and lots of other streets.
One other question: will it just be exterior wise, just be a metal building?
Yes, it would be a concrete floor, free-span metal building. The situation for us is that we currently are housed. Our Mardi Gras floats are housed in 3 non-contiguous structures that are down on Pillins and Conception Street, which, as the crow flies, is only like 2,000 feet from this property. And so it's our desire to consolidate all that into one location so that we don't have disparate warehouses of different ages. We've met with the fire department. As I said, they would fully comply. It would be a sprinkled building in that nature.
So you'll make it look like the IMs?
I don't know if we've got that kind of money. They got a lot more money than we got. Same way.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. That concludes the public hearing on this application. Under the new January codes, UDC, will anything change related to this type of use? Will it be allowed by right or
Specifically
anything
with the
different?
float barn or float facility, I do not think there's a change. I know that the criteria for warehouse, 40,000 feet and less by right, 40,000 feet or more by special approval.
So the size is really what's driving this.
Interestingly enough, in the current zoning ordinance, which is 50 plus years old, it does not allow it at all in B3. But I was going more so based on the size and the uses. I can look real quick and tell you whether or not this will be changed in the UDC, but I can tell you the square footage for a warehouse is the same. The break.
And you were saying earlier, I was asking you about use, because I wanted to emphasize that with the residents that B3 use, we've had this come up in other residential areas where we had a B3 or I1. I think we had one several years ago, an I1 was going to store chemicals and all that. So this could be a warehouse for, auto store or something like that.
Yes. I mean, it could be a car dealership. You could have auto repair here. Again, B3 is one of the higher commercial uses, and again, it would be allow a warehouse up to 40,000 square feet by right, no public hearing at all.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can I piggyback on that? Just because I just wanted to make sure that y'all as the neighbors were aware of this. I'm in a profession that actually leases and sells industrial real estate property. And this property is zoned B3, which allows for, warehouse distribution and things like, like a lakeside drive and things like that. And so when I initially was looking at this application, well, let me back up. In R1, allows single-family residential, which I think is what y'all have stated today that you would prefer to have there. I think if I was in your position, and the way I was kind of looking at the application is the likelihood of that becoming single-family residential again, may be hard. I can't say that for sure, but if it did, then it would have to be downzoned from B3 back to R1. On the flip side, with everything that's going on at Brookley, with Airbus, the port, and things like that, from my perspective, it seems like there are things going on in our market that are looking for more kind of warehouse distribution type sites, which this one could potentially show up on somebody's, list of potential properties. And so when I was initially looking at the application, I was thinking, this seems like a good compromise to me. It's already zoned for B3, but it's kind of tucked next to this residential community, with a float barn, very limited use by the people. It seems like you have a commitment from the group to do, nice landscaping and things like that. So you wouldn't have a lot of traffic. It would improve, but it wouldn't keep you open to a much more intensive use with trucks coming and going and things like that. So it just seemed like to me that with what it could be, this was a much better use in protecting residential houses than it could be if somebody else came in. And so y'all would just be in the position, I guess, of, taking the chance that maybe somebody wouldn't come and want to develop it for that use. And again, I'm just giving you my opinion, not trying to be argumentative at all.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Mr. Metcalf?
Just to confirm, in the UDC, it's the same. It's not allowed in a B3.
All right. I'm going to give Mr. Morris an opportunity to return. He had to step away for a minute.
It may be a little out of order, but we still have item number 2. Oh, okay. Well, and you have someone recused, so okay.
I just wanted to make sure that we had everyone here that had the opportunity to vote. And the other applicant has never showed, so we'll have that one as well. All right, Mr. Morris, you've returned. We've concluded the public hearing on the applicant, or excuse me, the variance request. And while you were away, Mr. Milling made a comment regarding the intensity of the use. You want to restate it? Any further comments? All right. Once again, that'll conclude the public hearing on the application. And staff's recommended for approval, subject to conditions. The applicants agreed. We had numerous residents that have signed in opposition. We need to make sure this gets to staff. I'm going to make sure, if anything, they'll make a copy of this for you, but I'm going to make sure this gets to our staff. And with that, Chair will entertain a motion.
Move for approval, Mr. Chair, subject to staff recommendations.
Okay, a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
I have 5 in support. The motion carries, and 1 in opposition. You have 15 days, and then if you want to talk to staff about your options, you're welcome to talk to them after the meeting. All right, and we have 1 application that we have to consider. The applicant, which one was that, 2? Okay, this application was recommended for denial. Have they contacted you for holdover or anything?
That is correct.
This is for the parking lot?
That is correct.
Okay.
No, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, we gave them the courtesy of holding it over so that they could have a.
Can I make a comment on this one too? Just because I remember this when I went back and looked at the previous application in 2012. I think when the bar next door wanted, and I had some comments at that point, concerns about it being just kind of a long-term parking lot, just with kind of the direction things were going code-wise in downtown, and it just doesn't seem like it's changed at all. So from my standpoint, I'm not in favor of it being leased to a parking facility for a longer term type use.
Okay, well, the staff's recommended for denial. Chair will entertain a motion.
I move for denial, Mr. Chair.
Second.
A motion to deny, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, do we have any other business, Mr. Anderson? Staff meetings adjourned. If you ladies would like to talk to staff regarding